I said, well, I'm going to go see Sam Walton. Who else am I going to see? So I called down to Bentonville, and they said, Mr. Walton's not taking appointments for a while. I drive down there anyway. I find out if he's going to be in that day. The lady said, yeah, he's going to be here all day. And I sit by the bathroom door. There's a place to sit. Everybody's got to pee. So I figured, okay. So I sit there, and I can see him come out. I got a picture of what he looked like. And I said, Mr. Walton, I've tried to set up a meeting with you. I would like 5 minutes of your time. And he looks at me and says, I'll be right out. Comes out, says, okay, you get 5 minutes. You're a persistent person. So I tell him my idea. And he looks at me and says, nobody's ever approached me with this idea. He says, what do you think the land's worth? And I said, well, Mr. Walton, I grew up in Nebraska. You grew up in Missouri. We're all farmers out here. The value of the oats is what the farmer thinks it's worth. And he looked at me and said, okay, I want $65,000 and Walmart pays no commission. I said, okay, thank you.
If you work hard and you work smart, you will be successful, says my guest, Mike Staenberg, on this episode of René Vidal, Sharing Stories of Peak Performance. President of real estate powerhouse, the Staenberg Group, Mike Staenberg is one of the most successful entrepreneurs of our time, known for his relentless energy, competitive spirit, and endless generosity. In our conversation, Mike talks about the power of mentorship, his tennis exploits, and why everyone needs persistence to make big things happen, whether it's on the court or in the corner office. For actionable tips on this episode, check out renevidal.com. Are you ready? Let's go.
Okay.
Michael Staenberg, it's an honor to be with you today.
Thank you. Good morning to you, and let's roll.
What was your mindset as a child? I mean, could you foresee becoming one of the most successful real estate developers in the world?
As a kid, I was husky. That's what every size I got was husky, and I was self-conscious of myself. And it was interesting that I always thought of myself as kind of shy and awkward growing up, but I was always an inquisitive kid. And I used to drive people crazy because, as my grandfather said, you're asking too many questions. Quit asking all these questions. And it was a interesting childhood growing up. I had no idea. I thought, I had a great childhood, until 13. We'll talk about that. But my dad was a very big disciplinarian. And, he taught us that you need to have structure. And you need to do something. Everybody had chores, and everybody. I hated what is it on the curb? I forget what we called it. Trimming up the curb with that's a little thing you raked along. And I thought, why are we doing that? Who cares what the curb looks like? But we didn't have a very big house. But my dad that was what he, shoveled the snow growing up in Omaha. And I mean, I thought, we had no money, but I thought that we were rich. I thought, hell, we had everything. We had 2 cars. What else do you need? And a 1,400 square foot house that I thought was a palace. And, we only had 2 bathrooms, but one for my parents and one for 4 kids. So who would know any different? So.
What was the culture in your house growing up? What was that like?
It was very disciplinarian. We went to services all the time. We believed, we kind of grew up, that we went to the synagogue on Friday nights, and we went to Saturday morning services, and, but be very respectful for, you always call someone sir and ma'am and by their last name. And it was, it was a nice childhood. We had 1 TV. It was a black and white TV. I remember it was in the living room, and it had the little ears on it. And you got stations 2, 6, and 7. And that was it. And, we were happy with that. We thought, and, I had my friends that were neighbors, and we played outside all the time. And, it was a nice childhood, especially growing up in Omaha.
When did you start playing tennis?
I started playing tennis probably when I was about 13 or 14 years old. My dad had died. And my mom started playing because she needed something to, have a social relationship. And so she figured, she'd play tennis and meet people. So, I remember going out on the tennis court. I was horrendous. I mean, it was embarrassing. But what I did was, and this is an early thing, is I started hitting it. We had in our backyard, we had this wall that was, it was kind of interesting because the first 8 foot up was it was a block. And then we had kind of a siding, and over my bedroom, my original bedroom was there. And I would just sit out there on this little patio and hit tennis balls for hours because I was determined not to be that dorky, fat little kid that could not hit a tennis ball. And I started winning, beating myself. So it was good. It was like, I win. So, and then I started playing with a couple of my friends on, public courts. And then they opened Dewey. It was called Dewey Courts in Omaha. It was kind of a nice, probably 8 or 10 courts. And it was, I went down there, and then they opened when I was 14 or 15. They opened the first indoor court. I remember what it was, but I don't remember the neighborhood. And there was 3 courts. And I remember how dimly lit they were. But, I started becoming pretty good. And then, in high school, I played tennis and, was the doubles champion. And I came in like 3rd in the state on singles. And I thought I was really pretty good, but I wasn't that good. But I played in the Missouri Valley here, at Dwight Davis. And I thought I was really good. And I wasn't that good, but I played a little at Arizona State. I could have been a lot better if I would have taken it more seriously. But when you have no money, you need to work and you need to get through college. And, it wasn't like a social hour. I wasn't good enough they didn't have tennis scholarships back then. So, but I thought I was pretty good, and I was not bad. I thought I was good because I could hit the wood racket. That takes a lot more skill than today.
Yes. And
I remember when the metal rackets came out, and I wouldn't change because I thought that was like cheating. I thought, well, here, now these people, the T, what was it that Jimmy Connors played with, the T something?
The T2000.
T2000, right. So here's this guy, and I'm watching him. He's killing the ball because the sweet spot was so much bigger. And here I'm hitting on the wood racket, and I'm thinking, okay. So I bought a metal racket. I remember, it cost like $39, which was a lot of money. I'm thinking, wow, like a $500 racket today. And it was amazing how it improved my game. But I always had that love-hate relationship with tennis. I'd get out there, and I was so wanting to win so badly. When I hit a bad shot, I would throw my racket. I'd smash it on the ground. I'd yell at myself because I knew I could be better. I knew where the shot was going. I just couldn't always get there because I didn't have the great first step. And in tennis, you need to have the great first step.
What were some of the positive attributes that you learned as a competitor, as an athlete, that you think continue to serve you well today as a CEO?
You just can't quit. You just, you got to practice. You got to show up and practice. And, if you want to get good, you have to practice. I didn't have a lot of natural ability, and I know that. But I was good at doubles because I understood the strategy. I understood, it's hard playing with someone because, when they miss a shot, I used to say, really? Really? You missed that shot? But sometimes you just have to shut up and do it. And then when you miss, you say to yourself, really? So, you learn teamwork. Tennis, they say, isn't a team sport, but when you play doubles, it is.
As a leader today, when your team members are metaphorically missing shots, are you still saying really?
I do sometimes. I've learned, but I also learned that, we have team meetings, and I will call people out nicely, because they need to be, called out. But if they do something nice in a positive way, call them out too. And so, I don't say really anymore. I do. I actually do say that. But I asked them why they did that, why they didn't see the shot. And, I mean, it's just interesting. I mean, tennis was great. It taught you discipline, and it taught you, drills and things like that. And I think any sport teaches that. I thought I was going to be a baseball player, and I could hit, but I couldn't field. So, I mean, but I remember my childhood. We played a lot of football outside with the guys. Just, we rode our bikes there, and it was just, it taught you teamwork. Whatever it did, it taught you how to get along with people, because you're only as good as the team.
There's so much there, and you mentioned Arizona State, and I want to go back to how a guy chooses Arizona State over Stanford. That's very interesting. But maybe we can back up to some of the early lessons you learned from your dad and maybe a few other mentors, because I know how important mentorship is to you and has played such a big role in your life.
I mean, it really, really has been, people say, they're lucky this, but I have been blessed to have people that have taken an interest in me in a positive way, in a very, very positive way. And I remember early on, my dad was a tremendous role model. Smart. Everybody loved this guy. I mean, there was nobody that didn't have the respect and love. But he was so strict, and he used to call us young men, young lady, but he taught us discipline. He said, and he always said, if you tell someone something, do it. Nothing, their word is your bond. And I mean, he said that 1,000 times, if not 1,000,000. And he always made it sound that if you do a good job, you'll get paid. Don't worry about the money. The money will come. And he kept saying that. And, you know the story about the red coat and how I wanted this red coat. But, he taught me that people are partners. People need to respect what you have. He gave me $5 for my work. And then he said the $3 is for we're partners, and the $2 is for Tzedakah charity. He instilled in us that you got to remember how you got there. So he was a very, very good influence to me. And I'll never forget, I used to bowl in a league on, I think, Tuesdays or Thursdays, I forget. I take my little bowling ball and walk down from our house to the bowling alley, the West Lanes, it was called, on 72nd. And, this is really a treat. I mean, the lane, I think it cost 10 cents a game. And, we had to earn it. And I had to buy my own bowling ball. And, I got a used one. And I was pretty good at 10 or 11 years old. And I'll never forget what someone said to me. I was telling people how good I was. And I don't remember the gentleman's name. He put his arm around me and says, look, we know you're a good bowler. Everybody knows it. You don't have to tell people. When you tell people, you diminish yourself. So check what you're doing. And it's always stuck with me. I am a self-promoter, but not egotistical. I don't have to tell people, hey, I got this or I got that to make myself. I just want them to understand the good I've done or the things I've done. And when I hear people taking credit for things that they never did, that's the only time I say something. The other day, I built the levee in Chesterfield, and it's of 2,000 levees, it's the #1 levee in the United States. I'm pretty proud of that fact. Of 2,000 that FEMA's looked at, we won the award. And we had all this rain we have no flooding. So a friend of mine was at breakfast and overheard a conversation from the city manager in Chesterfield taking credit for the levee. Now, I called him up and I said, hey, dude, don't take credit for this levee. I said, we worked on it together, yes, but this wasn't your idea. And that's the only time I want to tell people when I hear things like that. I don't have to tell anybody. People understand. And I guess the thing I always tell people is don't marginalize what I've done. I'm not looking for, I don't need a hug. I don't need, thank yous all. But, so that guy, when I was 10 or 11 years old, whoever it was who put his arm around me said, we know you're a good bowler, and fat kids can bowl. So it wasn't like an athletic deal. And It was really a good lesson. And then, when my dad died, I had someone named Melvin Freeman, Jerry Freeman. He stepped up, and he didn't have to step up. He says, look, I know this is a tough time. I'm 13 years old. And, he took me in. He said, look, I'm gonna pick you up. I know you want to be a baseball player. You're not that good. I could hit. Okay. But he took interest in me. And other people took interest with me. The school principal at Westside High School took interest in me. So, people took interest, and, it was nice. And there was a college professor at Arizona State that really took interest in me and said, you can be more than you think you can be. And he'd push me, and that's, you don't forget things like that. So, I've had a lot of good people, probably more than I should in my life, have taken interest. And, I think that the most important thing in my life is I listen to the feedback. You got to listen to feedback. And if someone tells you something, maybe they're right, and you should listen. And I remember some people. So I'm in my first 2 years at Real Estate Leo Eisenberg and Company in Kansas City. I made $2,290 the first year, and I'm working a job waiting tables, and I'm not doing well. The second year, I make $7,900. So this guy who is of blessed memory, Gray Turner, says to me, come in here. He says, you have more potential than anybody I know, by far. You're smarter than anybody I know. You outwork everybody and you've got all the attributes, but you have one problem. He said, shut up and listen. Just shut up and listen. You want to tell everybody. And he said, and that reminded me of the guy at the bowling alley. Okay. So the next year I shut up and listened, and I made $100,000. This is 1978, and the world, it changed. But here's a guy who had no benefit. He just said, shut up and listen. He'd take me to meetings, and he says, do not say one word. Do not say one word. You know how hard that is for someone who likes to talk? And
so you moved to Kansas City, you launched your career. The first couple of years, you were struggling. You were not having fun.
No.
With a capital F. Can you take us from there with your initial real home run or ace with McDonald's and kind of walk us through that?
Sure. So, here I am. It's the third year. I've learned how to shut up. And I have a wild idea. It's a Sunday morning, and I'm sure I was out the night before having a couple drinks with my buddies and doing what any 23 or 24-year-old kid would be doing. And I woke up thinking, what am I going to do to move the needle? I enjoy what I'm doing, but I gotta think about this. So I'm looking through the Yellow Pages back then, those great Yellow Pages. And I looked there and I said, somehow I opened it to restaurants. It just kind of opened to restaurants. So I'm looking through them, and I get to McDonald's, and they have like 9 or 10 locations. And then I get to Burger King, they have 2. I get to Taco Bell, they have 1. And I'm thinking, well, I'm going to call the McDonald's guy. They got 10. Maybe they need more. Just a fluke idea. I have these crazy ideas, and I don't know why. So Monday morning comes, it's 8 o'clock, and I figure out that the regional headquarters is in St. Louis, a guy named Webb Leslie. So I said, so I called down there and I said, I'd like to talk to the head of real estate. And he says, I am the head of real estate. My name is H. Webb Leslie, just like Robin Williams. That's how he talked. That's how he acted. And he said, he says to me, the first thing he says is, so not, do you want to do my deals? He said, how many restaurant deals have you ever done? I said, none. He said, well, at least you can tell the truth. I said, well, good. He said, what are you doing for lunch at 12:30? Now, I'm in Kansas City. I've been to St. Louis 1 or 2 times. My sister went to watch you. This isn't like I know where I'm going. There's no GPS. He says, I'll see you at 12:30, and don't be late. So I drive, and we're at 270 in Manchester at the Federal, whatever they were called, the Savings and Loan. It's still there in the building. And I get there at 12:25, and there he is at the bottom of the elevator with his watch like this, Well, at least you can show up on time too. So he takes me up to his office and we have this, he brings lunch in. Of course, it's McDonald's lunch. God forbid it should be. Actually, I like McDonald's. I used to eat it all the time. And we have a great lunch. He says, I like you. You passed the interview. I said, well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Blessley. No, H. Webb. Just call me H. Webb. Okay. So he says, I'm going to send you to Red Oak, Iowa. I said, okay. He says, McDonald's here's the four corners that we want to be on. But he forgot to tell me he'd been up there for 2 years trying to find a site. And they picked Red Oak, Iowa as one of those test markets for small towns for McDonald's. So I go up there and I'm not doing well. So I finally convinced the lady on the corner had a house to sell her house to McDonald's. She had told my friend, Mr. Blessley, no, a million times. But I just, I'm from Omaha, this Red Oak, it's 60 miles away. We're, kumbaya. So I get her to sign a contract. I think, hell, I just hit it out of the park. I'm going to get this guy's business. I come down, I drive back down because I really believe, my dad always told me, you can't put a pencil to the phone. You got to show up, look at people. The phones are great. Just show up and be there. So I drive down, and now from Kansas City to St. Louis, I get in the car, I drive down and take the contract. I'm as proud. I got the peacock, my coats, like this. And he looks at me and says, well, you made one mistake. I'm thinking, okay, I paid too much. I'm in the parameters you told me. He says, we only use McDonald's contracts. I said, oh my God, I didn't ask the question. I go back up and see this lady and explain to her that we have to put it on the McDonald's contract, and she says, well, who's going to pay my attorney to redraft it? Now the commission's going to be about $2,000. And she tells me it's $1,500 to redraft this contract. So I said, you know what? I will pay for it. I'll pay for it. I mean, what am I going to do? So I get it signed and the floodgates open. Bless H. Webb said, Mike, you're the man. You now have all of Omaha to work on. You have Kansas City to work on. And you have the state of Missouri, half the state to Columbia, Illinois, Columbia, Missouri to work on. And you might work on Kansas. I mean, it was like letting a kid in the candy store go. And so the greatest thing that happened was I was up in Excelsior Springs, Missouri, which is out north of Liberty. And I'm trying to find a site for McDonald's. I'm looking around, and I have this idea. There's a Walmart that has this huge parking lot. I can't find anything else. I said to me, well, hell, I find out who owns the ground. It's Walmart who owns the building and land, which was atypical back then. So I said, well, I'm going to go see Sam Walton. Who else am I going to see? So I called down to Bentonville, and they said, Mr. Walton's not taking appointments for a while. I drive down there anyway. I find out if he's going to be in that day. The lady said, yeah, he's going to be here all day. And I sit by the bathroom door. There's a place to sit. Everybody's got to pee. So I figured, okay. So I sit there and I can see him come out. I got a picture of what he looked like. And I said, Mr. Walton, I tried to set up a meeting with you. I would like 5 minutes of your time. And he looks at me and says, I'll be right out. Comes out, says, okay, you get 5 minutes. You're a persistent person. So I tell him my idea. And he looks at me and says, nobody's ever approached me with this idea. He says, what do you think the land's worth? And I said, well, Mr. Walton, I grew up in Nebraska. You grew up in Missouri. We're all farmers out here. The value of the oats is what the farmer thinks it's worth. And he looked at me and said, okay, I want $65,000 and Walmart pays no commission. I said, okay, thank you. And he thinks I'm going to be done, because this is probably $10,000 to $15,000 more. We talk about the size, and I said, I said my 5 minutes is up, which turned to 10 minutes, and I leave. I go back and I call H. Webb. I said, okay, here's the deal. He says, you know what we're going to do? We're going to get you into Walmart. McDonald's is going to get into Walmart. We're going to pay him $70,000, and I'm going to pay your commission. Now, this was unheard of having a company pay a broker's commission. They just didn't do that. I get the contract prepared. I'm smart this time. I put it on the McDonald's form. I drive it down there and I present it to Sam Walton. And he looks at me and he says, well, this is more than I asked and they're paying the commission. I said, yes, sir. I want to exceed your expectations. And he said, okay. So we go back and forth and he signs the contract and we close. So they didn't have any drinks back then in Bentonville. It was a teetotaler town. And I drive back down with flowers and candy. and he says, and he looks up and he says, it's you again? I said, yes, sir. I just want to thank you. I just want to tell you, thank you for the opportunity. And I hope we have an opportunity to do some business again. And then he says, don't move. And he yells to a guy named Tom C. And I hear him yelling there. They have this really small office. He says, come in here, meet your new developer, Mike Staenberg. I mean, was that the luckiest thing ever? I mean, the luckiest. And so I did probably 200 Walmart transactions. And the only thing I regret is Sam Walton sent me a letter and he had it typed up and he crossed out my, how they put through, dear Mr. Staenberg, he put Michael. And at the bottom, he says, you are going to be one of the most successful businessmen because you don't quit. And of course, I didn't keep the letter. I thought, okay, yeah, that's my biggest regret. And you know what? I ended up doing a lot of Walmart deals, and I had I tell you what, the greatest experience. But from going to McDonald's, I did the Godfather Pizza deals, I did Taco Bell deals, I did Pearl Dish deals, I did the Payless shoe deals. I was on a roll. So it was really, and that's how I met a lot of people in my life. But
all because you acted on an idea.
Right. I took an idea and I showed up on time and I actually did something. And I thanked someone. People think, it's not doing the deal, but thanking them. I drove down there. This was a 4-hour drive. People thought I was crazy. My guys in my office, you're going to go take flowers? Well, just send them. No, I want to shake the guy's hand and look at him and thank him. And I did, and that turned into a bonanza. Who would have known? Who would have thought?
As a leader and entrepreneur, what drives you?
That's a good question. I guess I'm driven because I don't want to fail. It's not that I want more success. I just don't want to fail. I've been there. The curve is kind of high. And I've been as low as you can be, when you have no money and you're at 13, 14 years old working at the grocery store, bagging groceries and hoping that you have enough money to get the bus, put money and food on the table. It's not a lot of fun. And I always said to myself, if I work hard, I work smart, I will be successful. I didn't like edging. That was the word I was looking for earlier, edging. I hated all that stuff. I knew that. And, when I was 16 years old, or 17 years old, they had a tornado that went through Omaha. I was a brick tender. Now, I didn't work 40 hours a week. I worked 80 hours a week because they were paying me double in cash. So, I wanted to get out of the straits I was in, and I didn't feel bad about it. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I don't have a father, or we don't have any money, or we don't have this. That was okay. We all get to decide what we want to do.
Is it fear of failing your own expectations or that of potentially failing others' expectations of you?
My own. People look at me and I don't, a lot of people are intimidated. I'm good with that. I really am. But I'm most proud that I can sit here and know I've done the right thing. And I try to do the right thing. And I always say to myself, how would I want to be treated in this situation? And I've made dumb decisions, but I've always given the people their money back. I remember a guy said to me, well, you told me we're going to get this. And I said, you know what? You're right. Here's your money back. I just remember my dad saying, do the right thing. Your words are bond. Just do the right thing and not make an excuse. And, I remember, I'll tell you a funny story. I was 9 years old. The Crossroads were across the street from us. And I took a candy bar. I knew it was the wrong thing. I knew it was the wrong thing. So I went back to the Woolworth store a couple of days later, and the manager says to me, "Young man, took that candy bar, didn't you?" I said, "I did." He said, "I have two choices for you. I can call your parents because I know them, or we can get the money back and figure out how we're going to make this right." And I said, "For that, I have an hour's worth of cleanup I need done. So when you pay me back, I need an hour's worth of cleanup." So that taught me early on, okay, I knew it was wrong. I didn't think everybody was watching. I just put it in my pocket. They didn't have any kids.
Michael, how do you define leadership?
I define leadership as something in empowering people so that they want to move forward in the same direction as you. It's pretty simple. I tell people, I talk to people about, the process and procedures, expectations, and what does success look like? Leaders need to tell people what success looks like. Most people will tell you, we're successful if we make money. No, I don't believe that. It's more than making money. It's a whole bunch of social factors, being good to your community, being good to your teammates. That's to me leadership. It's not, there's nothing fancy. I mean, I work with my sleeves, I say it, and put my ego and my emotions on my sleeves. I tell people, this isn't, sometimes I probably shouldn't, but that's okay. That's just how I lead. And what I'm most proud of is I have people that have been with me 25 to 35 years. And I have people that are still my good friends. I've alienated, yes, because I just tell people how I feel. And a lot of people don't like feedback. I'm personally, give me the feedback. And what I always tell people, a man that can't change his mind has no mind. I mean, really, you got to be, if someone says, as my friend Greg Turner said, shut up and listen. Okay. If he wouldn't have told me that, I'm not sure I'd be where I am today. And so I've been able to have probably 20 people like that in my life, 20 people. And I'm lucky. I'm the luckiest guy for that. I mean, really, and I know we have to go because our 30 minutes is getting to the end here. We'll continue. But, people say to me, well, how could you be partners with Stan Kroenke? If you walked in the door right now, I'd say, thank you. I learned a lot. Now, there's things I didn't like. Of course, in any relationship, there's things you like, but I learned a lot, yin and yang. And so that's how I consider leadership, learning from other people and imparting that learning to someone else. You're a tennis coach. You're trying to teach these kids not how to play tennis, but to think about things differently. Either you have it or don't. I mean, you can do the drill. No, really, I know that. I mean, I could have practiced another 10 years every day and would never have gotten to Jimmy Connor's level. It's just, you have it or not. Now, what I did have was like the Michael Jordan, I willed myself to do things. You got to will yourself to do it and get yourself mentally prepared. And that's what I do here. I get myself mentally prepared. But I also expound how I feel and it gets it out of me. So then I can move on. That's just how I handle. I don't let it build up and I'll just yell at myself or someone else and then I feel better. But it's not personal. So
I have one more question, Michael. What's your methodology for building great teams?
I'll tell you this, I have a weakness. And my weakness is this. I'm good for the first 10 to 15 people. After that, I really don't like to lead people. I'm honestly, one of the things I know that is a great leader and a great team builder is knowing your weaknesses. And I know what I like to do, what I'm good at. I can do it. No, I really can. But I struggle. I really struggle on that. I really struggle on that whole thing. And it's like going to city councils. I don't like politics. But hold on, I know how to do it if I have to, but I'd rather send someone else to articulate that, and then I can follow up. I don't need to be the face, and so everybody knows what they like to do and not do, and good leaders know that. And I also, as a good leader, I want to have someone smarter than me in the room. I hire smarter people. I want to build a great team. I want people that are smarter than me.
There's a difference between leading a successful boutique firm, which is what you've been doing your entire career, and running GE, or running Microsoft.
Yeah. I wouldn't be good at that. But that's a whole discipline. I'm not into the politics. I'm not into, the corporate things. I watched Walmart grow from a small little company to a big company. What I always am amazed with is that the people that at Walmart thought they were good, they're only good because of Walmart, because of Sam Walton. They left Walmart, very few people were successful. I can say that people who worked with me in my little boutique firm leave, they are successful. Okay, so.
To close, Michael, I want to thank you, not only for your generosity, but more importantly for your honesty, because I think through this conversation, we can see how telling the truth yields real benefits personally and obviously professionally. And you're a great role model. I'm really grateful for you.
Oh, thank you. And the last thing I'll tell you, I was thinking about it yesterday, and what my greatest joy is today is reverse mentoring. Taking kids, because they're teaching me. They don't realize it, but they're teaching me. And I had a young man in here for a half an hour yesterday, and he says, "So what do you think?" I said, "It's great having reverse mentoring. You don't realize you're mentoring me." So we'll pick this up again, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's good to be with you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hope you enjoyed listening to René Vidal sharing stories of peak performance. Remember to listen, watch, subscribe, and review anywhere you get podcasts. Keep dominating on and off the court.